Untold Black Stories. The emergency wing of Brightwell Medical Center, a pristine private clinic nestled in the heart of the city, hummed with quiet intensity. The polished white floors reflected the sterile lights overhead. Machines beeped rhythmically, while soft footsteps echoed across the marble as nurses moved with trained precision. Here, everything was clinical, composed, but beneath that calm ran a current of urgency only the staff could feel. Dr. Marcus Ellison, a trauma surgeon with over a decade of elite surgical experience, entered the prep area without hesitation. He didn't need to ask what was going on. He could read the room, the clipped tone of the charge nurse, the way junior staff avoided eye contact, the controlled panic simmering just beneath the surface. He had been here too many times to count. Dr. Ellison, a nurse called, stepping briskly toward him with a tablet in hand. 56-year-old female, Victoria Langford. Collapsed at her home, housekeeper found her unconscious in the kitchen. EMS reports rapid blood loss. We suspect internal hemorrhaging. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly as he took the tablet, scanning the preliminary diagnostics with sharp eyes. She's already in surgery. She is, the nurse confirmed. Initial attempts to stabilize her weren't sufficient. The lead surgeon requested backup, then complications began to arise. You're our best shot. He didn't hesitate. Prep the ore. I'm suiting up. Inside the operating room, the temperature felt a few degrees colder than the hallway. Monitors flickered. Gloves snapped on. Masks went up. Marcus entered, already halfway into surgical mode, his heart steady, his mind clear. The woman on the table was pale, nearly lifeless, but there was a narrow window, a moment, where intervention could change everything. This was where he thrived. No cameras. No politics. Just skill, intuition, and science. The surgery stretched into the late afternoon. Time became abstract. Nurses handed him instruments in silence. His hands moved as if disconnected from the rest of him, steady, practiced, methodical. He could feel the pull of exhaustion in his shoulders, the dull ache in his lower back, but he pushed it aside. Every minute counted. Every movement mattered. By the time he closed the final incision, it was evening. The woman on the table, Victoria Langford, was stable. Heart rate normal. Bleeding stopped. Vitals recovering. Not only had Marcus saved her life, but barring complications, she was projected to make a full recovery. He peeled off his gloves, washed up, and handed the chart to the observing nurse. No applause, no cameras. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had done his job, again. He left the OR and made his way down the pristine hall, his thoughts already turning to the next patient. But not long after he stepped into the physician's lounge, his pager buzzed sharply. Victoria Langford was awake. And the storm, one he hadn't caused, but would soon have to weather, had just begun. The private recovery suite was bathed in soft, ambient light. Pale gray curtains hung neatly from the windows, and a vase of lilies added a carefully curated touch of elegance. Everything about the room screamed comfort: high-end sheets, personalized care tablets, a subtle lavender scent diffused into the air. But the woman in the bed, Victoria Langford, didn't feel comforted. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, unfocused at first. Pain pulsed low in her abdomen, wrapped in a dull ache that reminded her she was very much alive. As the haze of anesthesia lifted, her breathing quickened, and she registered the room, then the machines, then the slight hum of life beyond the door. And then, she saw him. Dr. Marcus Ellison stepped into the room quietly, holding her updated chart. He was composed, dressed in surgical scrubs with his white coat now back on. His face, calm and professional, bore no trace of the exhaustion he carried just hours ago. But Victoria's gaze narrowed as she locked eyes with him. A beat of silence passed, then her mouth twisted into a sharp sneer. She spat, her voice scratchy but vicious. I want to speak to the real doctor. Not the janitor they pulled in off the street. Marcus didn't blink. He had been expecting this. Years in medicine had trained him to prepare for complications, not just in surgery, but in character. He knew what this was. He had seen it before. Not every wound could be sutured with stitches. I'm Dr. Marcus Ellison, he said, voice steady. I performed your surgery, Ms. Langford. You were in critical condition. I'm pleased to say you made it through, your vitals are stable, and your recovery is progressing well. Victoria scoffed, her hand weakly gesturing to the bandages on her abdomen. Stable? I feel like I've been butchered. What did you do to me? Her tone was accusatory, almost venomous, and it slashed through the quiet like a scalpel. Marcus checked her vitals on the monitor without breaking his calm. Your pain is within expected levels for post-op. You've responded well to the procedure. I'll adjust your medication for comfort and monitor your healing over the next few days. I don't want you monitoring me, she snapped. I don't want you anywhere near me. I want a doctor. A real doctor. Not someone they dragged in for diversity points. Her voice was louder now, echoing off the walls of the private suite. A nurse outside the door paused, glancing through the glass panel before continuing down the hallway. Marcus stood still at the foot of her bed, an invisible weight settling on his chest. The room felt colder. Smaller. But his face betrayed nothing. I understand your concerns, he said evenly, and if you'd like a second opinion, I can arrange that through the clinic director. But in the meantime, I'll continue overseeing your care, as is protocol. I'm not some charity case, she hissed, turning her head sharply away. I know what this is. I want the director. I want someone who knows what they're doing. Marcus nodded once, tightly. I'll inform Dr. Monroe of your request. He left the room silently, his steps precise, his expression unreadable. But as he walked down the sleek hallway of Brightwell Medical Center, he could feel it, that old, familiar burn of frustration under his skin. The kind of pain that didn't come from scalpel or suture. It didn't matter that he had just saved her life. To Victoria Langford, he would never be a doctor. Just a black man in her room. The hallway outside Victoria Langford's room buzzed with low murmurs and cautious glances. Though no one said it outright, the tension was unmistakable. Nurses exchanged looks. A tech paused at the nurse's station, uncertain whether to enter the suite. The reputation of Brightwell Medical Center was pristine, but even in the most polished environments, ugliness found a way in. Dr. Marcus Ellison sat in the staff lounge, shoulders hunched slightly as he ran a hand over his face. The sterile quiet of the private clinic was a stark contrast to the rage that had poured from Victoria's mouth just moments ago. But he had no time to dwell. Another nurse stepped in, tablet in hand. She's still asking for you, the nurse said quietly. But now she's yelling about getting you fired. Said she wants to escalate it to the highest authority. Marcus let out a slow breath, eyes closed for just a second longer than a blink. Let her escalate it. I'm not stepping back from my duties. He stood and rolled his shoulders, burying the anger beneath layers of discipline. It wasn't the first time a patient had questioned his authority. But it always felt the same. Sharp. Personal. Exhausting. Meanwhile, in the recovery suite, Victoria sat upright in bed, her body tense, her face twisted in disgust. The luxury room might as well have been a prison. Every hum of a machine, every step of a nurse, every shadow at the door, she saw it all as a threat. Especially him. He's incompetent, she muttered under her breath. He's dangerous. I want a different doctor. I want a proper surgeon. Not someone they're trying to make look good for PR. Despite the fact that her vitals had improved. Despite the fact that her incision was healing better than expected. despite the truth. She didn't see Dr. Marcus Ellison, only the color of his skin. The next morning, Marcus entered her room with professionalism etched into every motion. Clipboard in hand, posture upright, voice calm. "Good morning, Ms. Langford," he said. "I'm here to check your progress." She didn't even greet him. "You again," she snapped. "Didn't I make myself clear? I don't want you anywhere near me." He remained composed. "You're recovering well. I reviewed your labs this morning, and everything is within the expected range. You're making steady progress." Victoria threw the covers off dramatically. "Don't give me your lies. I know what's happening. I've been in pain since you butchered me." "That pain is part of post-operative recovery," Marcus said. "It's temporary. If needed, I can adjust." "I don't want you adjusting anything," she shouted, pointing at him. "You people always think you can get away with things because no one wants to say it out loud." Marcus felt the words pierce something deep. Not just as a doctor, but as a man. The phrase, "you people," echoed through the sterile room like a slur disguised as civility. But he said nothing. He'd learned silence was sometimes the strongest armor. "If you're in pain, we can help," he said simply. "But your recovery is going as it should." "Oh, I know what's going on here," she spat. "I've seen your kind pretend to be competent just to check a box. You think you can fool me?" Marcus kept his voice even. "You receive the same care we provide every patient. Nothing less. Nothing more. I'll have your job for this," she hissed. "Mark my words. You've made me worse." He stepped back, nodding once. "If you'd like a formal review, I'll inform Dr. Monroe. In the meantime, I'll continue to ensure your safety, unless otherwise directed." As he turned to leave, her voice echoed behind him, loud and furious. "You better believe I'm filing a lawsuit. You're not getting away with this." At the far end of the hallway, Dr. Rachel Monroe, director of the clinic, stood behind her office window, watching as Marcus walked past with unshakable poise. But she could see the weight he carried, not from the scalpel, but from the slander. She knew what was coming next. And so did he. The executive floor of Brightwell Medical Center was quiet, an architectural monument to private wealth and polished prestige. Frosted glass walls, white marble floors, and curated artwork adorned the corridor. It was a clinic that catered to the elite, and any hint of scandal was treated like an infectious disease. Inside her corner office, Dr. Rachel Monroe reviewed the latest patient reports when a soft knock interrupted her focus. "Come in," she said. Dr. Marcus Ellison stepped through the door, his expression measured, but she immediately sensed the weight on his shoulders. "It's Ms. Langford," he said without preamble. "She's threatening legal action. Again. Claims I've worsened her condition. She wants me removed and says she's contacting her lawyer." Dr. Monroe sighed, leaning back in her chair. "She's been like this since the moment she woke up. We've both seen patients like her before." "She's not letting up," Marcus replied. "Every interaction escalates. She's demanding to speak with you directly. And she's not just unhappy, she's accusing me of deliberately harming her." Rachel pressed her fingers together beneath her chin, thinking. "I reviewed her chart this morning. She's healing faster than expected. No sign of complication. No infection. No error. You've done everything by the book." "That's not what she sees," Marcus said. His voice was steady, but the tension in his neck betrayed him. "She's not interested in medicine, she's looking for a reason to destroy me. And the color of my skin gives her one." Dr. Monroe's eyes softened. "You don't have to say it, Marcus. I already know. You're not the first black physician to face this here. But we stand behind you. There is no medical misconduct." Marcus nodded. "I just need to make sure the facts are documented." I'm not walking away from this, but I need to know I'm not walking into it alone. You're not, she assured him. Let me talk to legal. If she files, we'll respond accordingly. In the meantime, keep treating your patients. Let me handle Victoria Langford. But both of them knew it wasn't that simple. Later that day, in her recovery suite, Victoria Langford put on another performance, groaning dramatically, clutching her side when a nurse walked by, making exaggerated complaints about her pain levels. She knew exactly what she was doing. It wasn't about discomfort. It was about building a narrative. She botched it, she told the nurse in a hushed but piercing voice. You all know it. You're just covering for him. The nurse gave no response. Just a polite nod and a chart update before quietly stepping away. Outside, the air felt heavier. Marcus passed by a group of interns, and though they said nothing, he could feel their concern. Word was spreading. The murmurs. The tension. The whisper of a lawsuit. Inside his chest, a tightness grew. The next morning, the inevitable confrontation arrived. Victoria Langford, now sitting upright and fully dressed in her robe, met Dr. Rachel Monroe face to face. At her side stood a sharply dressed man with a stiff briefcase, her attorney, Ethan Cole. Rachel invited them to sit in her office. Marcus remained outside, awaiting the outcome. You know why I'm here, Victoria snapped, not bothering with pleasantries. Your surgeon nearly killed me. I want him gone. And I want justice. Rachel's tone was calm, professional. Ms. Langford, we've reviewed your case thoroughly. Dr. Ellison's performance was exemplary. Your surgery was a success, and your vitals are strong. You're being discharged in 2 days. Ethan leaned forward. Ms. Langford is filing a formal lawsuit against Dr. Ellison and this facility for gross negligence and medical misconduct. If the matter isn't resolved promptly, we'll take it public. Rachel didn't blink. You're welcome to file. But I must inform you, we have extensive documentation proving the quality of care provided. Your recovery aligns with best outcomes. There is no indication of malpractice. You're all protecting him, Victoria snapped. You don't want the media to know you've got unqualified people cutting open rich women on expensive tables. That man saved your life, Rachel replied, her voice colder now. And this facility doesn't tolerate slander. We won't be intimidated. Outside, Marcus stood still, back straight, arms behind his coat. He didn't need to hear the words to know the shape of the war forming behind that door. It wasn't about evidence. It was about perception. And for someone like Victoria Langford, that was all she needed. The air in Brightwell Medical Center had shifted. You could feel it, not in alarms or emergencies, but in the subtle stiffness between colleagues, the unspoken looks, the way conversations paused when Dr. Marcus Ellison walked past. It wasn't fear. It was sympathy. And it was pressure. Victoria Langford's threats had become reality. By the end of the week, her attorney, Ethan Cole, had officially filed a lawsuit, medical negligence and racial discrimination. The language was sharp. The accusations unfounded. But perception, as always, was the true battlefield. Inside the hospital's legal office, folders were spread across a large table. Documentation. Surgical reports. Recovery charts. Internal emails. Dr. Rachel Monroe sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, eyes scanning the team of attorneys preparing their defense. She's not suing because of what you did, one lawyer noted bluntly. She's suing because of who you are. Marcus sat quietly beside them, his face unreadable. But those words weren't news to him. They were just finally being said aloud. A few days later, back inside Brightwell, Marcus was called into a small consultation room. Waiting inside, Victoria Langford and Ethan Cole. The walls were white. The lighting soft. But the atmosphere was sharp enough to cut skin. She didn't wait for formalities. "You think you can just smile and hide behind polite words," she hissed, eyes locked on Marcus like a weapon. "You people always do. But I know what you did." Marcus's expression didn't change. "I treated you, Ms. Langford. I saved your life. That's not opinion, that's medical record." "Oh, don't you dare talk down to me," she spat. "You butchered me. I've never felt this much pain. And I know why. Because you didn't care. You walked in, saw someone like me, and decided you didn't have to try." Her lawyer looked uncomfortable, not because he disagreed, but because she was saying the quiet part out loud. Marcus leaned forward slightly, voice calm but no longer soft. "This isn't about pain, Ms. Langford. This is about hate. You've despised me from the moment you saw me, not because I failed, but because I don't look like the doctor you think should be standing in front of you. You really think this is about race?" she shot back, laughing bitterly. "I don't think." "I know," Marcus said, meeting her eyes. "You never asked for evidence. Never asked what went wrong medically, because nothing did. You saw me, and that was enough. You decided I wasn't qualified based on skin, not skill." Ethan tried to interject, but Marcus cut through. "I've worked my entire life to earn this coat. To be better than good. To make sure no one ever had a reason to doubt me. But even that isn't enough for people like you. Because you're not looking for truth. You're looking for someone to blame." Victoria's face reddened, but she didn't interrupt this time. Marcus stood, straightening his jacket. "You want to take this to court? Do it. Because when the truth comes out, and it will, you'll have to live with the fact that the man you tried to destroy is the same man who saved your life." He turned and left the room in silence. That evening, Dr. Monroe found Marcus in the break room, sitting alone by the window. The city skyline was beginning to blur into the night. "She's not backing down," Rachel said softly. "We just got the court date. 2 weeks from now." Marcus nodded, but didn't look away from the window. "Then we get ready. You shouldn't have to fight this hard just to prove you did your job," she said. "I don't do it to prove it," Marcus replied. "I do it so that no one else like me has to fight alone." The courtroom was smaller than Marcus expected. No towering ceilings. No echoing acoustics. Just beige walls, polished wood, and tension so thick it could have replaced the oxygen in the air. Dr. Marcus Ellison sat at the defense table in a navy suit, flanked by Dr. Rachel Monroe and the hospital's legal team. He kept his hands folded, gaze steady. On the other side of the room sat Victoria Langford, her lips curled into the same familiar scowl, flanked by Ethan Cole, ever sharp in his tailored suit, scribbling notes like a man convinced he was scripting a victory. The case had drawn attention. Not press, not yet, but whispers among the city's elite. A patient of means, a prestigious private clinic, a successful black surgeon, and a question of trust that went far beyond the operating table. The judge entered, neutral but observant. The case began. Ethan Cole launched the opening salvo. "Ms. Langford is not only a survivor of botched surgery," he declared, "she is a victim of systemic bias in reverse, a patient dismissed, harmed, and silenced by a medical provider who, we believe, is being protected out of fear of what this lawsuit represents." The implication hung in the air like a bad smell. Then came the dramatics, photographs of Victoria's bandages, exaggerated descriptions of her pain, claims of emotional trauma, of deliberate neglect. She spoke with conviction, even as her claims contradicted the records. She was left in agony, her lawyer said. Ignored. Lied to. And when she dared to raise her voice, she was threatened with removal. Why? Because she questioned the wrong doctor. The hospital's legal team responded with facts, and facts, it turned out, were mercilessly clear. Marcus's surgical report, flawless. Recovery timeline, ahead of schedule. Vitals, consistently stable. Nursing logs, no deviations. Peer review, confirmed exemplary care. A senior surgical consultant testified that Marcus's decisions reflected textbook trauma response. The courtroom started to shift. Energy drained from Victoria's side. Even Ethan Cole's posture stiffened. Then came the moment that settled the room. Marcus stood, calm and composed. I didn't operate on Ms. Langford for applause. I operated because it was necessary. Because she was dying, he said. And despite how she sees me, I treated her exactly as I would anyone else, with care, with precision, and with the full weight of my training. The fact that I'm standing here at all, defending that care, tells you everything about the bias we don't talk about. Silence. Even Victoria didn't interrupt. Later that afternoon, the judge delivered the verdict. Case dismissed. No evidence of malpractice. No violation of medical ethics. No grounds for racial discrimination. Just a doctor who had done his job, and a patient who refused to see it. Marcus didn't smile. Didn't sigh in relief. He just nodded slowly, the words echoing inside him. He had won. But it hadn't felt like victory. Not exactly. That evening, back at Brightwell Medical Center, Dr. Monroe stepped into his office. It's over, she said softly. I know, Marcus replied, still staring at the city through his window. You're in the clear. Her case is dead. So's the threat to your license. He nodded, but didn't move. You did everything right, Marcus, she said. I always do, he answered. And I always will. But somehow, that's never quite enough. The following days at Brightwell Medical Center unfolded quietly. No more yelling from room 406. No more hallway stares. No more staff meetings laced with tension. On the surface, life had returned to normal. But for Dr. Marcus Ellison, normal wasn't what it used to be. He moved through his rounds like always, calm, composed, deliberate. His patients smiled, nurses nodded, his fellow doctors offered quiet respect. But beneath that smooth routine, something had shifted. Not in how they treated him, but in how he felt walking through it all. In the past, he had walked with quiet pride. Now, he walked with quiet weight. The lawsuit was over. Victoria Langford had vanished back into her world of privilege and illusion. Her name had faded from the monitors. But her presence lingered, not in charts or signatures, but in scars. Invisible. Deep. One afternoon, Marcus stood at the nurse's station reviewing a patient's chart when Miles Thompson, head of security, approached with his usual calm stride. You've been quiet, Miles said, leaning on the counter. Just catching up, Marcus replied without looking up. Miles studied him for a second. You know she didn't win, right? You're still here. Still doing what you do. Marcus finally looked up. I know. But you don't feel like you won. Marcus closed the chart. I saved her life, Miles. She tried to destroy mine in return. Not because I made a mistake, but because I existed in a position she didn't think I belonged in. And even after proving myself, I still feel like I'm the one who walked away with the bruise. Miles nodded slowly. People like her don't see doctors. They see symbols. And you were everything she didn't want to admit could be excellent. Marcus gave a short, hollow chuckle. I thought winning the case would feel like redemption. But it just felt like survival. Later that evening, the hospital quieted. Marcus found himself alone in the staff break room, sipping lukewarm coffee, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above him. He stared at the wall, not because it was interesting, but because it was still. Neutral. Something that didn't expect anything from him. Dr. Rachel Monroe entered with a gentle knock. holding a cup in her hand. "Mind if I sit? Please." They sat in silence for a moment. She studied his profile before asking, "How are you really?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He took a slow breath. "Tired," he said. "Not from surgery. Not from hours. From proving. Always proving. That I belong. That I'm good enough. That I'm not some exception or checkbox or threat." Rachel set her cup down and leaned in. "You're not alone in this, Marcus. The clinic stands behind you. I stand behind you. We saw what she was trying to do. And we saw you stand taller than all of it. I appreciate that," he said. "More than I can say. But it still doesn't change the fact that this will happen again. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not here. But somewhere. Someone else will walk into a room, see my face, and decide I can't possibly be the one to help them." Rachel reached out and placed her hand gently over his. "And when they do," she said softly, "you'll do what you've always done, help them anyway. Because that's who you are. That's what makes you more than what they expect." For the first time in days, Marcus felt something break open inside his chest, not anger. Not exhaustion. Just quiet recognition. He nodded, offering a small, tired smile. "Yeah," he said. "I'll be ready." The city outside Brightwell Medical Center glowed under a calm evening sky, but inside the clinic, Dr. Marcus Ellison sat in silence, the weight of recent weeks still echoing through his body. He wasn't broken. Far from it. But he was bruised, not in the way that showed up in scans or diagnostics, but in the quiet places no stethoscope could reach. He thought about every patient he'd ever helped, those who thanked him, those who cried, even those who never knew his name. But none of them clung to his memory like Victoria Langford did. Not because she mattered. But because she tried so hard to make him feel like he didn't. That was her power. And it was also her failure. The next day, Marcus returned to his routine with subtle adjustments. He greeted patients a little more warmly. Took a second longer to explain treatment options. His professionalism hadn't changed, but there was something new behind it, a kind of defiant empathy. And people noticed. The nurses, once quietly concerned, now rallied around him. Small gestures, a coffee left on his desk, a compliment in passing, a subtle but sincere, "We're glad you're still here." Patients didn't know the full story, but they could sense something had been weathered. Even the interns looked at him differently. Not with pity. With respect. He had faced a storm, and he was still standing. One evening, as Marcus prepped for a late procedure, Miles Thompson passed by the OR prep room. "Hey, Doc," he said, holding the door open for him. Heard Langford dropped her appeal. Guess her lawyer realized they were gonna bleed money chasing a ghost. Marcus paused, mid-glove. Dropped it? Fully. No fanfare. Just folded. Marcus nodded once, quiet. Good. Miles tilted his head. Not gonna celebrate. I don't need to, Marcus replied. That part of the story's closed. But not gone. Marcus looked him in the eye. No. It's still here. Just not in charge anymore. That weekend, while reviewing charts in his office, Marcus received a knock on the door. A young woman in her early 30s stepped inside, clutching her son's hand. Dr. Ellison? She asked. Yes. I just wanted to say, you treated my father here 6 months ago. He passed recently, but he told us something before he died. He said you made him feel safe. Seen. Like someone cared. Marcus didn't know what to say. The woman smiled softly, eyes glistening. You did more than treat him. You gave him dignity. I just wanted to thank you for that. After she left, Marcus sat back in his chair, hands resting in his lap, and closed his eyes. No court ruling could weigh more than that. The sun had set again. The clinic was winding down. And Dr. Marcus Ellison stepped into the hallway with the kind of strength that doesn't roar, the kind that walks forward despite everything behind it. In the shadows of judgment, accusation, and hate, he had endured. And in that quiet, steady resilience, he had become something more. Not just a brilliant surgeon. Not just a black doctor. But a man who stood his ground, and refused to shrink. Thank you for watching until the end. Did this story resonate with you? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one and truly value your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, more powerful and emotional stories are on the way.